I woke up gasping. My shirt was stuck to my back with sweat, clinging to my skin like a second layer I couldn't peel off. My heart was racing, slamming, against my ribs like it was trying to break out of my chest. The sheets were tangled around my legs, twisted into knots I didn't remember making. For a solid 10 seconds, I couldn't remember where I was. The ceiling above me was familiar, cracked plaster, that water stain in the corner that looked vaguely like a cloud, but my brain was still trapped somewhere between sleep and waking, still caught in the nightmare that had felt more real than anything I had ever experienced. I sat up slowly, pressing a hand to my chest, feeling the frantic pulse beneath my palm. What the hell was that? My voice sounded strange in the empty apartment. Hoarse. Shaken. Like I had actually been screaming. I stared at my apartment ceiling, at the faint light filtering through the curtains, at the dust motes floating in the morning air. Everything looked normal. Everything looked exactly the same as it had yesterday. But nothing felt normal. Because I could still hear her screaming. "Help my son. Please, he can't breathe." The memory of it was so vivid it was almost physical. I could feel the phantom sensation of my feet hitting the floor, the cold concrete through my socks, the way I had run out of my apartment without thinking, without grabbing my phone, without anything except the instinct to help. Then the kid. A boy, maybe 6 or 7, his face turning from red to purple as he choked on something I couldn't see. His small hands clawing at his throat. His eyes wide with the kind of terror that no child should ever know. And me, kneeling beside him, trying to remember the Heimlich maneuver, trying to stay calm, trying to do something, anything, while the mother screamed behind me. I'm trying. Stay still. Then blood. Too much blood. I don't even know how it happened. Maybe I pressed too hard. Maybe he had something lodged wrong. Maybe it was just one of those things that goes bad no matter what you do. But suddenly there was blood on his lips, blood on his shirt, blood on my hands, and the mother's screaming changed pitch entirely. "What did you do to him?" Her hands were on me then, pushing me away, shoving me back like I had done it on purpose, like I had hurt her son instead of trying to save him. The ambulance arrived. The police arrived. The questions started and didn't stop for hours. Then the lawsuit. I remembered sitting in my boss's office 3 days later, watching his face as he delivered the words that would change everything. "We can't keep someone involved in this kind of situation. It's not personal. It's just optics. You understand?" I didn't understand. Not really. Not then. But I understood when my phone started exploding with messages. When strangers online called me a monster. When my face appeared on local news with words like investigation and pending charges underneath it. When friends stopped answering my calls. When family members looked at me differently, like I was hiding something, like I had done something wrong, like I was the villain in a story I had never wanted to be part of. And then, slowly, everything fell apart. My job. My reputation. My sense of who I was. All of it, crumbling like dry earth in my hands. I rubbed my face hard, pressing my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. It was just a dream. The words felt hollow. Empty. Like saying them enough times might make them true. It had to be a dream. Right? My day off started like any other. I shuffled to the kitchen in my old sweatpants, the ones with the hole in the knee that I kept meaning to throw away. I filled the coffee maker with water, scooped the grounds into the filter, pressed the button. The familiar sounds, the gurgle, the drip, the hiss, should have been comforting. Instead, they just felt like background noise to the static in my head. I cracked an egg against the edge of the bowl. Then another. Then another. But when I went to crack the fourth, the egg slipped from my hand. Not dramatically. Not in slow motion. Just slipped. And dropped straight into my plate. Shell and all. I stared at it. The egg sat there, yolk spreading lazily across the ceramic, pieces of shell floating like tiny boats on a yellow sea. It wasn't the mess that bothered me. It was the feeling that came with it. A sudden, sharp jolt of recognition, like when you hear a song you haven't thought about in years and suddenly you remember every word. Something about this moment felt familiar. That's new. I poked at the broken egg with a fork, watching the yolk bleed into the plate. The shell pieces crunched under the tines. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a memory stirred. Not the dream exactly. Not the nightmare. But something connected to it. Something about eggs. Something about? I shook my head hard. Get a grip. It's just breakfast. I cleaned up the mess, made more coffee, and tried to forget. By noon, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. The usual stuff. A video of a dog riding a skateboard. Normal, ordinary, forgettable content designed to fill the empty spaces of a day off. But I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the ceiling. To the wall that separated my apartment from the one upstairs. To the faint sounds of movement that filtered through the old building. Footsteps, muffled voices, the distant thud of something being dropped. I was still thinking about the dream. Still hearing that woman's voice. Still seeing that little boy's face. A loud thud from upstairs. Followed by a kid screaming. Not a happy scream. Not the kind of scream that comes from playing or pretending or having fun. The kind of scream that makes your blood run cold. The kind of scream that means something is wrong. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up at once. No way. I slowly stood up, my phone still in my hand, my heart already beginning to race. I walked to the wall and pressed my ear against the plaster. Another crash. Something heavy hitting the floor. Furniture, maybe. Or a person. It was hard to tell. Then the mother's voice. Stop running inside the house. I closed my eyes. That was her. My neighbor. Everyone in the building knew her. She had moved in 6 months ago, and in that time, she had managed to alienate almost everyone on our floor. Loud phone calls at all hours. Her kid running wild in the hallways. Complaints about everything, noise, smells, the way people parked their cars. She was the kind of person who made you question if parenting was optional, who made you grateful for the walls between your life and hers. And that voice. I knew that voice. Not from the hallway. Not from the complaints filed with management. From the dream. Exactly the same. I walked to my front door and stopped with my hand on the knob. This is stupid. I wasn't going to base my life on a dream. That was insane. That was the kind of thing that got you committed or laughed at or both. Dreams weren't prophecies. They were just your brain processing random signals, shuffling memories, cleaning house while you slept. Right? I took my hand off the knob, went back inside, sat down, picked up my phone again, and then my security camera notification popped up. Front door motion detected. My stomach dropped like I had missed a step on a staircase. Slowly, carefully I opened the app, and there she was, standing in front of my door, crying, banging on the wood with the flat of her palm. Please, open the door. My blood ran cold. The sound was muffled through the phone speaker, but I could hear it clearly. The panic, the desperation, the exact same words, the exact same tone, the exact same moment from my dream. Nope. I stepped back from my own door like it was on fire. My phone trembled in my hand. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her voice got louder, more frantic. My son. He's choking. He can't breathe. Please help. Exactly. The same words. Same panic. Same moment. My hands shook as I gripped my phone. Think. In the dream, I had opened the door. I had run out without thinking. I had tried to help. And it had destroyed everything. My job. My reputation. My life. But in the dream, she had called the ambulance first. I remembered that now. In the dream, by the time I got there, the paramedics were already on their way. I hadn't needed to be there. I had just made everything worse. So, call them again, I muttered under my breath. I opened my phone and dialed emergency services. My fingers moved automatically, the numbers muscle memory from a life that hadn't happened yet. Hello, I'd like to report a child choking in apartment 3B. Yes, the mother is already on site. I believe she's called you already. No, I'm not with her. I'm a neighbor. I just wanted to confirm that it's urgent. Thank you. I hung up. Then I did something very simple. I turned off my lights. And I didn't open the door. She kept knocking. Harder now. Angrier. Why aren't you answering? I know you're home. I can see your lights were on.
Yeah.
You definitely are. I stayed quiet. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there in the dark of my own apartment, phone clutched in my hand, waiting. She cursed. Actually cursed. Loudly. Words that echoed in the hallway that would probably generate another complaint from another neighbor that I made a mental note of for later. Then footsteps. Running away. I exhaled slowly, a breath I hadn't realized I had been holding. Not today. Later, I checked the hallway camera footage. Paramedics had arrived 3 minutes after I hung up. 2 of them, moving fast, carrying bags and equipment. They knocked on her door, were let inside, and then, nothing. Just the closed door and the quiet hallway. No blood. No chaos. No me. 20 minutes later, the paramedics left. The mother followed them out, her son in her arms, both of them looking tired but alive. The little boy was crying, that scared, post-crisis kind of cry that comes after the danger has passed, but he was breathing. He was okay. I watched the footage 3 times. Then I leaned back in my chair and let out a shaky laugh. I just saved my entire life. I should have known it wouldn't end there. People like her, people who see the world as a series of obstacles rather than a community, they don't just go away. They don't accept defeat. They regroup. They reframe. They find new ways to make you the villain in their story. 2 days later, she cornered me in the hallway. I was coming back from the grocery store, arms full of bags, keys in my hand, just trying to get to my door. She stepped out of her apartment like she had been waiting, watching through the peephole, timing her attack. You ignored me, she said. I kept walking. I called emergency services, I replied calmly. She stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Up close, I could see the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her jaw, the way her hands kept clenching and unclenching at her sides. She looked exhausted. She looked desperate. She looked dangerous. My son could have died. He didn't. Because they got there in time, she snapped, her voice rising. Exactly. She stared at me like she wanted a different answer, like I was supposed to apologize. Like I was supposed to feel guilty for not running out to play hero. Like my refusal to participate in her drama was somehow a moral failure. You think you're smart? She said, crossing her arms. I think I like my life, I replied. That didn't go well. A week later, I got a call from building management. We received a complaint about you. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Of course you did. She claims you refused to assist in an emergency. That you were home and aware of the situation and deliberately chose not to help. I called the ambulance. Silence on the other end. She didn't mention that. Shocking. More silence. I could hear the manager typing, probably pulling up her complaint, cross-referencing the details. Do you have proof? She asked finally. I smiled slightly. I have cameras. I sent her the footage. The timestamp showing when I called emergency services. The recording of my call. The hallway footage of the paramedics arriving. The whole timeline, documented and time-stamped and impossible to dispute. The complaint was dismissed within an hour. But she didn't stop. Oh no. That would have been too easy. She started small. Noise complaints. Fake ones. He plays loud music at night. I don't. I go to bed at 10. He's aggressive in the hallway. I'm not. I say hello to everyone I pass. He's been harassing me and my son. I haven't spoken to either of them since the hallway confrontation. Then she escalated. Online posts. Local community groups. Anonymous accusations with enough details that people could guess who she was talking about, but not enough that she could be sued for defamation. Some people shouldn't be allowed near children. Not all heroes are good people. Just because someone looks innocent doesn't mean they are. No names. But very obvious. I stared at my phone and laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. Because this woman had tried to drag me into her disaster, and when I refused, she had decided to build a disaster around me instead. You really want to do this? So I did something she definitely didn't expect. I started recording everything. Every interaction. Every complaint. Every time her kid kicked someone's door or threw trash in the hallway or screamed loud enough to wake the whole floor. Every time she confronted a neighbor. Every time she made a threat or a false accusation or a scene. Turns out, I wasn't the only one tired of her. The man in 3D had been keeping his own log for months. The woman in 3E had security footage of her kid vandalizing the mailboxes. The couple in 4A had recordings of her screaming at them for walking too loudly on the stairs. We didn't know we were all collecting evidence. We were just each surviving her in our own way. Until one evening. She was yelling at another neighbor, the guy in 3D, accusing him of stealing her packages, of lying about her, of being part of some conspiracy against her. "You're lying." "I have it on camera," the guy snapped back, holding up his phone. I stepped forward from my doorway. "Actually, so do I." She froze. Slowly turned to me. "What?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the relevant clip. "Want me to play it?" Her face went pale. The kind of pale that comes not from fear but from realization. The sudden, horrible understanding that the game has changed, that the rules no longer favor you, that you have run out of people willing to be your victims. A few days later, building management called a meeting. Not just for me. For her. 3 tenants showed up. All with videos. All with logs. All with complaints dating back months. Her kid running wild. Breaking things. Threatening other children in the building. Her screaming at people. Threatening lawsuits. Filing false reports. Lying to management about neighbors she didn't like. It stacked up fast. Pages and pages of documentation, hours of footage, witness statements from half the building. She tried to interrupt. Tried to argue. Tried to cry. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down," the manager said firmly. That was new. The manager had always been polite before. Accommodating. Eager to mediate rather than judge. But this time, her voice carried an edge I had never heard before. She sat. For once. The decision came quickly. Very quickly. "You violated multiple tenant policies. Noise violations. Harassment. False complaints. Destruction of property." The manager listed each violation like a judge reading a verdict. "This is your final notice. You have 30 days to vacate." Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." "We can. And we are." She turned to me, her face twisted with rage. "This is your fault." I shrugged. "No," I said. "You just finally ran out of people willing to deal with you." The day she moved out, the entire building was quiet. Not the tense, waiting kind of quiet. The peaceful kind. The kind that comes after a storm has passed, when the sun comes out and you can finally breathe again. Her furniture went into a truck. Her boxes stacked on the sidewalk. Her kid, for once, stood still and silent, watching his life get packed away. Someone actually clapped when the door slammed shut behind her for the last time. I leaned against the railing, sipping my coffee, watching the truck drive away. Best dream I ever had. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. Same position. Same room. Same cracked plaster and water stain in the shape of a cloud. But this time, there was no panic. No fear. No racing heart or sweaty shirt or tangled sheets. Just one thought. If that dream hadn't happened, I chuckled softly. I would have opened that door. I would have run out to help. I would have tried to be a hero. And it would have destroyed everything. But the dream had happened. And I had listened. And now I was here, safe, employed, my reputation intact, my life still mine. I didn't know how the dream had come to me. Premonition. Coincidence. Some weird neurological glitch. Maybe I would never know. But lying there in the dark, listening to the quiet of the building, I realized something. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't running toward danger. Sometimes it's staying still. Sometimes it's saying not today. Sometimes it's choosing yourself over someone else's crisis, even when the world tells you that makes you a coward. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in days, I slept without dreaming.